Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys.
Everything sequel contains explicit language. And why the fudge not, you melon farmer?
Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel Podcast. This is a dollars edition. Today we're ranking the Clint Eastwood dollars. Well, not trilogy, but 2 of the 3 movies. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man tracking me down, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hello, Tom.
I thought I was having trouble with my adding, but it's all right now.
Last line, right?
Last line of the first movie.
Yeah.
Are these comedies?
Yeah.
Because in watching them both back to back, both movies land jokes at a hit rate that is in excess of most movies that are sold to me as comedies.
Right.
Yet, I mean, for a few dollars more, lands 3 to 4 jokes perfectly, both visual and verbal.
Agreed.
There's about double that in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and yet you don't see these movies appear in any history of film comedy.
Nope.
And yet, I go see a movie like Saturday Night, which is about comedy, so I assume it has jokes in it. Yeah, not really any jokes in the movie.
Not heavy on jokes?
Not heavy on jokes or humor or laughter.
There's a few jokes in there. Come on.
I don't know. Apart from Matthew Rhys as George Carlin, and that's really more of a performance I'm laughing at than a joke.
That's true.
Greg the Egg as Jim Henson, maybe. Merv Griffin's penis, maybe.
Merv Griffin.
Is it Merv Griffin? No, not Merv Griffin. Who is it?
Uncle Milty.
Oh, Milton Berle, yes.
Yeah. His dressing down of Chevy Chase. Fucking fantastic.
I think everyone's wanted to do that to Chevy Chase at that moment. I don't know if everyone's wanted to take their penis out in front of Chevy Chase to the same extent. But people have certainly been wanting to have that conversation with him.
As I understand it, Uncle Milty had no problem showing you just how big his dick was, though.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know the size of Merv Griffin's penis. There's no historical record of that.
Agreed.
That I know of. I'm sure there is. But, in the wider sense, if you'd have to go to the dark web to find out about stuff like that, I think.
All I know about Merv Griffin is that he's most of his wealth is from the Jeopardy theme, as I understand it.
He wrote the Jeopardy theme?
Pretty sure.
Wasn't he So is he a musician?
Well, he was a talk show host. I remember watching his show as a kid.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, we're already way off track.
This is what you heard some of the best film music ever recorded to start the show.
Yeah.
And then
yes.
Within seconds, we're talking about Milton Berle writing the Jeopardy
penis
thing
that we don't know anything about.
Well, the point stands. I think it was a good point to start on because I don't think these movies are given enough credit as comedies. I guess the other point for our purposes would be they're not given enough credit as formative sequels either.
Well, they're fascinating films to look at.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Because they're so early on
and to listen to.
Yes. Yeah. And that's part of it too. I mean, even just trying to write down the fucking years for this movie. Because you have an American release and an Italian, a release for overseas. Yes. And so all of these movies, including the original, I think were released in 1967 in America.
Oh, really? That late?
Like January, May, or April, and then December.
So Americans got both movies in the same year.
All three, including the original. Including
Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah.
Which, as you stated, we will not be covering as yet.
Not yet.
Which I'm actually, for once, I'm kind of grateful about, because I think the Fistful of Dollars only complicates what is already quite a complicated narrative that threads.
That's the other thing,
movies.
Right? I mean, are we dealing with the first prequel ever?
Well, I mean that's a question that was in the back of my mind. In the front of my mind was, are these even the same characters that we're following?
So there's weird... I mean, one, it's all kind of weird shit, because you think of Clint Eastwood, the man with no name. Meanwhile, he's got 3 different fucking names throughout these movies.
That's right. Monko, Joe, and Blondie.
Yeah. I read something else on IMDb Notes, which was that the first thing I read was that according to law, these are 3 different characters, because there was some court case.
Yeah.
And they said it's 3 different people. But I think it was a note on the next movie for Good, Bad, and the Ugly, they said you can consider these characters all the one man. They're the same person.
But you can't.
I know.
Not definitively. I mean, we'll get into it when we.
In regards to the 3 names, the Joe and the Mako and the Blondie.
Yeah.
These are all kind of nicknames that other people give them.
Well, I think the movies keep open the possibility that these could be the same people.
Uh-huh.
But in order for you to buy into that, you have to accept that they have undergone a complete 360 in characterization.
Mm-hmm.
Especially going from Colonel Mortimer to Angel Eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a literal character inversion.
Well, I got to tell you, before we started this series, I didn't expect so much crossover between this and the Pink Panther series.
Oh,
in my mind's eye.
Wait till we get to the title sequences. They're
yeah.
very much reminiscent of the Pink Panther titles.
But when you take into account the sort of Robert Loggia character jumping that happens, and it's not just 1 or 2 characters. There's 5 people that are jumping to different characters in these movies.
Yes, and they have the same kind of repertory company of actors who play different characters in each movie. So
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is it feels like repertory theater?
Yeah,
on
completely.
Film.
Yeah, you see El Indio's team of bandits, and you're like, you just kind of like you're just kind of going through them systematically, going, well, he's a priest in the next one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sure. He's a prison guard.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of questions about, I think, what kinds of sequels these are, and whether we can even, the other big question that struck me, and I never really thought about this until I kind of watch the films through our lens, is that the West of each movie is entirely different.
You mean between the films, or between what we normally see?
Between the films, yeah.
Yeah.
Because for a few dollars more, it takes place in a mythic West, whereas Good, the Bad, and the Ugly takes place in a historical West.
Yeah, right. But they're all shot in Spain, right?
Well, yes, they're shot in, yeah. So the deserts are in Spain, the interiors are in Rome.
There might be some North African shots,
possibly,
too.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think you have to go to North Africa for some of that foliage.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and the interiors and all the sound is filmed and recorded in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
But there are American actors in the movie, and the source material is American.
Mm-hmm.
The source material is the Hollywood Western.
Sure.
As perfected by John Ford and.
Yeah, right.
Howard Hawks and Stanley Kramer. So it's definitely a collage of different cultural influences.
Right off the bat, I kind of want to talk about my relationship to sound in this movie.
It's huge. I mean, never has sound been more important in any movie we've ever discussed.
Yeah, I agree.
Sound, and I'm interested to kind of talk more about this, because you said sound rather than music, and I think that's crucial as well, because the music is the iconic sound of these movies, but the diegetic sound is as expertly crafted and as affecting and as central to the effect of the movie as anything else, any other element of the movie.
You know, in Good, Bad, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, when Eli Wallach kind of falls over after one of the cannon launches, and he kind of rolls into the graveyard and then gets up and starts, running around. I haven't watched this movie in a while, and it just struck me that the sound cue that starts up right there for the music, I immediately, instead of watching the movie, I started thinking to myself, fuck, what car commercial is this in?
It's been used, well,
that's how used it is, that it's such a part of our lives, we don't even realize how much.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned commercial as well, because as I was watching this sequence, which I think probably beat for beat certainly the best build of film music I've ever heard, the way that the instruments fold into each other in that sequence is kind of unparalleled until the next scene. Which takes it to a whole other level.
Another level, yeah.
But the thought I had was, like, this seems like the first music video in the way that visuals and audio are working together. Like, that relationship between the two you get in the music video, you get here.
Yeah.
And it one of the many ways in which these movies feel so ahead of their time.
Yeah, very much so.
I mean, the way that they approach tone as well, the kind of irreverence that they have for, for tonal incongruity, and collapsing the distinctions between high art and low culture.
Yeah, right.
Everything that's kind of central to postmodernism, but you think of as being characteristics of movies that were made much later, is all here in a mid to late 1960s movie, depending on which part of the world you saw it in.
Well, and not just that, but when you add on top of that the sort of Tarantino effect.
Yes, and I do want to talk about Tarantino, because there's a quote from him that I think we need to...
Reveals all, or...
No, I think it's just a really good discussion starting point, especially for us, because I remember he was on the Bill Maher Drugs Are Cool show. I don't know what it's really called. You know what I mean? Yeah. Should probably be now called the Bill Maher Trump is Cool show. But I don't know if you've seen Larry David's response to that whole...
I haven't read it yet,
debacle. But... I think basically just taking the word Trump out of everything Bill Maher said and replacing it with Hitler is the only way to respond to those actions. But anyway, he was on the Bill Maher Drugs Are Cool show, and he was asked about the Dollars trilogy, and he said Tarantino said in his inimitable, and by inimitable I mean I don't want to imitate it because it's very annoying, style, that they exactly, it's unique among film series because each successive film both reinvents the series and they also get progressively better. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with that in this moment.
I was going to say, I might have something to say about that, but we'll save our ranking for now.
But that's certainly a really good starting point because I do think...
But what?
Go ahead. This is distinctive. I think this is distinctive amongst film series, and I wonder whether that is like one or both of those distinctions holds up.
Well, what's fascinating about what you just said is that that comment leads exactly to the kind of films that Tarantino makes.
Yeah.
The fact that the third movie is what he thinks is the best movie. I mean, first of all, my overall point in bringing up Tarantino was when you watch these movies, you watch them in a different frame of mind now because Quentin Tarantino has happened to the world. And
well,
you understand that these are his favorite movies and how he draws on them in his own work. And now you telling me that he believes that they get progressively better as they go along. And you can almost envision what he's drawing from on that last movie, the things that he puts into his movies in the sense of how they unfold and how much time they might take.
Yes. So
I'm trying to hedge my bets right now and
let's face it, neither films are tight when it comes to timing.
Sure.
I think I mean we'd have to see when we go back and do it for Patreon, but Fistful of Dollars I remember being a fairly concise movie.
Yeah, I think it's like 140, an hour and 40 minutes, if that.
But neither of these movies are, and I think they are. I think part of that is a lack of time management, and I guess that's the sort of Tarantino-esque part of it,
right?
Because he can also be accused of the same. But I think it is also about expanding the canvas of the world that the movie takes place in.
Absolutely, that's true,
and to a large extent is justified because of that. I guess I must have seen Tarantino films before I saw the Dollars trilogy, but I grew up with these movies. So many of the scenes in both these movies, especially The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, are just burned into my brain to the point where when did you watch Good, the Bad, and the Ugly on Prime?
Yeah.
So that's the
That's another important fact, though. I mean, we watched the long version.
Right, it's a full 3 hours, and the scenes are so burned into my brain that I could instantly recognize when a scene that because I had it on VHS, and it was pre-millennium, so the scenes that were added for the 2003 cut, they stuck out like a sore thumb for me.
Okay.
Not just because it was clearly an older Clint Eastwood and Eli Wallach dubbing them.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But also because, I mean, one, it's like that's what editing's for, stupid. But also, it was just like, the film is so burned into my brain that the flow from scene to scene is as well, and if anything disrupts that, it's like it's like I can smell gas. You know what I mean?
Okay, so yeah, I guess I'm the opposite in the sense of it's been forever since I've seen these movies.
Me too, but I realized rewatching them that I knew them intimately,
and I don't have that frame of reference of remembering what I saw before.
Yeah,
and that characterizes how I watched this movie, though.
It's guessable. As soon as you see Eli Wallach with a dead chicken, you're like, this is a scene that they rightly cut from the movie.
Yeah. For reasons that should seem obvious.
And they all seem to be scenes to explain why the next time you see characters, they're surrounded by 5 other men. Which, growing up watching these movies,
you're never worried about.
Never bumped me once. I was like, they picked up 5 people since the last time I saw them. I don't need to be spoon-fed an explanation about why. Not if it's gonna delay a chase sequence or something, or a shootout.
I think that grains against some of your previous arguments, but okay.
What previous arguments?
Well, I think I brought this up during Axel F, where I was like, you don't have to be spoon-fed these arguments about why he's not a undercover agent anymore. He's just not. But you won't accept that for that movie.
I don't accept to use another Tarantino-esque phrase. I reject your hypothesis. Remember when he said that at Cannes when the journalist asked the question about why Margot Robbie doesn't speak in the movie?
Yeah.
He said, I reject your hypothesis that even happened. They just forgot that he wasn't an undercover cop. That's not the same as saying, well, since the last time we saw him, he's not an undercover cop. So
I think that's the argument you'd like to believe.
I think that we're talking double jeopardy. We can't relitigate that case.
I agree.
No, but anyway, I mean, it's consistent with a point I've made much earlier in the podcast that all director's cuts are worse than the theatrical versions.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't think there's an exception to that rule.
No, yeah.
Not that this is a director's cut. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know whose cut this is. Right.
It says AMC, so I don't know. They dredged up these scenes, which are just like connective tissue scenes to put back in the movie for no apparent reason I can see.
Wasn't the original, I want to say, around 2.5 hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say 160 something.
Okay.
And that's a memory of me looking at the VHS tape, looking at the back of the VHS tape. Yes.
Yeah.
Which I remember. It's one of the few VHS cassettes that I remember when I got it to the day and when I first watched it, because it was the last day of school, and I got home and my dad had brought me Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I don't know where he found it, but he knew I was into film enough that this was definitely something I'd enjoy. And yeah, I watched it straight away, and I kind of never stopped watching it for the next few years.
Interesting.
And then I went back, and so I watched these series in reverse, which you can absolutely do. In fact, I go as far as saying that I don't know if everyone necessarily knows this is a trilogy or that there's any other film in the series apart from Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah, right.
In the same way that, everyone knows there's a Superman and a Superman 2 before Superman 3. I don't think people have the same canonical knowledge of this series.
Maybe not. I don't...
Because just like you said, elements of it are so much more iconic than anything in the first two movies.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like the sort of the ubiquitous sound cues.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're I don't know, at least someone of my generation, if you just a complete stranger in the street and just went ooh,
right,
9 times out of 10 they would respond back bow bow bow
bow. Yeah.
But if you go twang twang twang, the same person isn't necessarily going to shout back doot, 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 doot. But arguably maybe they should. I don't know if it's as iconic, but maybe it's as good.
Mm-hmm. Well, where does that leave us? I mean, we talk about this pretty much every time about the ease with which we're ranking or declaring.
Yeah.
How'd that go for you?
How did that go for me? Well, I think it's fair to say that there's one movie on this list that would top the list of pretty much any list of films that you were to offer me. Without discussion.
Okay.
And maybe the only other film you could pit it up against that would warrant a conversation is the other film that we're ranking.
I thought you were going to say The Fugitive, but
oh well.
When I came home, there was a man in my house.
He had a prosthetic arm.
Well, I've got let's we can't get into it now, but we're going to be talking about Clint Eastwood and the man who shaped the modern day action hero.
Yeah,
and he's doing a lot of that,
and not just through this one series, by the way.
Yeah, shaping.
Also including a series we've already talked about.
Sure, but in this movie, it elevates him to mythic status, but he lays the groundwork for how action heroes would be portrayed for the next 30, 40 years. By himself and others. You know, Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and everything he did as well. So, but yes, so in terms of declaring didn't give I didn't give a second thought to that.
Okay.
It's and I'll I don't want to necessarily let the cat out of the bag, or I think the enthusiasm with which I'm talking is rapidly doing that. I don't think there's more fun you can have with a couple of sequels.
Yeah, right.
You know, yeah. So ranking is a more interesting question than declaring. I think for me at least, for this series.
Okay.
There's more to say about why it might not be a slam dunk for one of them.
Interesting.
What about you? I'm sensing a little bit of not disagreement, but full-throated agreement with the
it's not exactly that. No, yeah, it's not exactly that. But I think there are things worth talking about, specifically in regards to one movie, because it's I'll give away too much here, but
you were gonna say, yeah, I think I get where you're going.
Yeah. But I didn't have to give. Let me put it this way: I didn't have to give too much thought to either my ranking or my declaring.
Okay.
But I think there's something I could say in declaring that won't take too long or be very interesting, but just kind of a side note to say. And I think we might be diametrically opposed on our ranking. So I'm
interesting.
I'm curious to see if that pans out.
Well, I hope so, because I and I've given this away already for nothing, but for less than a few dollars. I on a different day, like I said, the only movie that could supplant the other on the top spot is The Other.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the way I feel about it.
For all time? I mean, are we talking about
not for all time.
The best sequels you've ever seen?
Let's say as popular film art, I'm not sure it gets better than either of these two movies. In fact, or maybe even pop art. It's interesting. I'm not sure of the exact kind of parallel
phraseology.
Well, I'm not sure of the exact parallel historically, but I think a lot of what Leone's doing is going on at a very similar time to what the pop artists are doing in painting.
Are we starting to get to Andy Warhol?
That's what I'm... Yeah, and to me, this is as good an example of that as Warhol, as Lichtenstein, and, in television, say, a Batman 66.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And that is going on at the same time.
I think all of that I agree with.
Just bringing pop culture to the level of art, and then bringing art to pop culture, which is what was going on with everything. All those artists.
Yeah, actually,
media I just mentioned.
Yeah,
that's what I think is going on here, and I think so maybe it's not early for that, but maybe it's early for cinema doing that.
Right. I think what's interesting about what you're saying is that, sometimes people say you want to go to the movies just to have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do that like these two movies do.
Yeah.
And still create art.
You get so much more. But it never interferes with entertainment and only enhances your entertainment, which is there's a really niche group of texts that can do that, I think.
Mm-hmm. All right.
you know, I mean, and as a film, Sergio Leone is a filmmaker I have huge respect for.
Yeah.
This is definitely,
except maybe for his compulsion to put people's lives in jeopardy, but other than that,
what, in reality?
In reality, yes.
Yeah, sure, but I think he is a great film artist. I don't think he showed it maybe any better than in these two movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people would normally say Once Upon a Time in the West or Once Upon a Time in America are his masterpieces, but I actually think these are weirdly more sophisticated because they're less sophisticated.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, but yes, but comparing these two movies to the one to the other is interesting because they are extremely different movies.
Yeah,
and that's why I wanted to start with what Tarantino said, because I think there was a lot of truth behind that. The idea that you reinvent what the series is every time you make a movie. And I think that happens here, and that makes ranking an interesting proposition because you're not comparing like for like at all.
Yeah, true.
And I think you'd expect you would be in this series. That I think if you didn't know and you were just looking in from the outside, you'd assume that these were all much the same kind of a Western. And
yeah, right.
Certainly these two, and I from what I remember, all three are very, very different takes on the genre.
Yeah, I mean, well, you said it earlier, right? About putting one is sort of the mythos of the West.
Yeah.
And the other is kind of straight up within the history of the West.
And Fistful of Dollars is a remake of a Japanese movie, so that's basically a samurai movie.
What movie?
In disguise. Fistful of Dollars. Oh, Yojimbo.
No. Okay.
Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo. It's a straight remake of that.
Fantastic, interesting.
So that's a samurai movie in disguise. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. But it does seem like that they scramble they kind of etch a sketch it every single time and start again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just it's not just kind of reset in the sense that we're used to with kind of serial narrative, but it's a kind of reset of the idea of the movie as well each time. So
isn't it interesting, all that resetting within the framework of using the same actors and possibly the same characters?
Possibly. It is. I mean, I think that there's times when Sergio Leone uses cinema as a canvas, both in the sense that, his movies look like paintings often, or forms of art other than cinema, forms of visual art other than cinema, but also in the sense that it does, that he's kind of, painting over and starting again.
Mm-hmm.
With the same artistic style, but completely different content and imagery each time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of like certain artists. You look at like a figure in a painter's work and you go, oh, that was definitely done by them. And that's kind of what the actors / characters are in these movies. They're like, well, that's a Sergio Leone character.
Yeah, right.
Definitely. We've seen that before in his work, but it's not necessarily the same person going through a serial narrative.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I don't know when. I guess his is a good enough time to say it, but one of the kind of formative experiences I had in regards to film criticism was I went to a conference at the ICA, the Institute of Contemporary Art in London, which was about cult cinema, and the guest speaker was Christopher Frayling, who wrote the definitive book about Sergio Leone and lays claim to have invented the term spaghetti western.
Oh wow, okay.
And he even talked about how that term came up. He said, in London in the 60s, if anything, if you wanted to show that anything was Italian, you put spaghetti in front of it. So spaghetti westerns was the next logical step. He said, if I was naming them now, I'd probably call them a piece of the action, because everything now is the preface for everything Italian now is pizza. But at the time, it was spaghetti.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, I vividly remember him talking about how Sergio Leone used to treat his actors as puppets. Like he would literally go and move them into the positions he wanted. And I think this goes beyond film direction. I think it's about an artist and their canvas.
Yeah, right.
And everything has to be exact with it, and you can see that throughout both of these movies. No shot or sound or edit is ever left to chance. It's all meticulously assembled and choreographed.
Mm-hmm.
And it really stands out. So it's a really clinical method of filmmaking that goes beyond what normal workman-like directors do, or even what auteur directors normally do. I think it goes above and beyond that too.
Yeah, right.
So,
all right. Are you ready?
Sure. I think I know where I stand.
You want to go first?
No, I'd like you to go first, actually, because I think the listeners will be more curious about what you think, because I think they've pretty much figured out what I think.
So, it's funny, because the conversation that you were just talking about leads me to perfectly in sync to my thoughts about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because when you talk about the auteurship, I think about that movie. When I think about the canvases that he is painting, I think about that movie. When I think about the specificity of what he wants, I think about that movie. But what I want is what he does for a few dollars more.
And how is that different in your mind? And I'm not saying it's not. I'm just interested in knowing why you make a distinction between the two.
I see it in both.
Yeah.
But in the good and the bad and the ugly, I think it's indulgent at times. And because I watched the version that I watched, with scenes that don't belong there, it feels just overlong and not tight enough for me to put it at the top of my list.
Okay.
And therefore I put for a few dollars more at the top of my list. I mean,
because it's shorter?
I think you're mischaracterizing what I'm saying.
And deliberately so, to try and find out what you think the difference is beyond one being shorter than the other. And
I mean, that's part of it. But
not much shorter,
obviously.
though. I mean, it takes its time.
Yeah, but it's 2 hours.
Especially, but the last half hour is pretty meandering.
Yeah, but the meandering in Good, Bad, and the Ugly in the middle, for me, meanders quite a bit.
I don't think it ever gets to the point of meandering. I always think they find something to do with that time. And there's a couple of moments in For a Few Dollars More where I think they're treading water. I never think that about the Good and Bad and the Ugly.
Well, I think about that a lot in Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Really?
Yeah.
I actually think there's a kind of an embarrassment of riches, of ideas that they're trying to kind of get on screen and do back to back, and I think it works better than any other film I've seen. I think a big part of it is that both these movies, especially Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, are purposefully episodic. So actually, you don't notice quite as much that they're taking their time, because each sequence kind of comes to a resolution and then restarts again, and each time they find each time they even the movie gets reinvented from scene to scene, and each time they find something as, if not more, interesting to do than they did in the previous scene.
Mm.
So, you know, the
my initial thought when I finished Good, Bad, and the Ugly, watching it this time, I hadn't seen it in a long time, was that the sum of the parts, meaning the whole was less than the sum of the parts. The parts, taken individually, to me, I'm like happy as a pig in shit. But when I add them all together, they don't seem to quite make as much to me as the narrative that unfolds for a few dollars more.
Okay. It's certainly... it's...
And I think part of it, too, is... Sorry to interrupt, but...
No.
I think part of it, too, is characterization. I find the characterization... I like the Van Cleef character juxtaposed against Clint Eastwood in For a Few Dollars More. I think a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think Clint Eastwood is like the least defined character out of the three in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
I think that's totally purposeful.
And it probably is, but I find that less interesting.
Oh, I find it more interesting that they choose not to give him a backstory, and yet they choose to do one with Tuco.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I get a lot of what you're saying, and you know, that For a Few Dollars More kind of follows an emotional arc of the character much better than it does in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And, you know, we only get Tuco's emotional backstory in kind of fits and bursts here and there.
Right.
And mostly in one scene, to be fair, which normally I'd have much more of a problem with. But the fact that a movie like this can find those depths in a character that, you know, both in the way it's played and directed, the way it's played, directed, and performed is like outside in for the whole movie and then suddenly becomes inside out.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a big popular movie pull that characterization 360 ever as successfully as they do with Eli Wallach in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So, and you know, the whole idea of Mortimer and the way that is, the way that his emotional arc and his backstory is kind of plays out For a Few Dollars More is done far more elegantly, far more carefully. Yeah. It's restrained in a way that I find really beautiful and affecting. That's
the part that I really respond to.
Yeah.
Especially because...
Creeps up on me every time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you
mainly
realize...
because I think he's Angel-Eyes rather than Mortimer, but that's a different story.
I think part of it is that when you get to the end of For a Few Dollars More, and that happens, you start thinking to yourself, why did this sneak up on me? It feels like it was under my nose the whole time, and then yet it did sneak up on me. And I really like that about that movie.
I think, you know, that's another trick that's really hard to pull off. Like, logic dictates you should never hide the ball from the audience about
right
your emotional content, so you know your character's wants and needs, but you can't. The story is told way better if you hold on to that until the very last minute.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that we would normally be complaining about. And yet here, it's what it
but
is.
Here it works.
It's the strength of the movie. It's why after that meandering half hour, you've got an ending that just completely blows you away.
Yeah. But that's the other thing about The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, is by the time you get to the end, it's kind of the opposite of what you were talking about for the Patreon with the Batman.
Okay.
Because no matter...
Double Jeopardy.
This does not happen to you.
I'm behind a paywall.
This doesn't happen to you, but for me, if I find that movie meandering at times because these other scenes have been added that don't belong there, like I'd like to see just the 2 hour, 40-minute version, but at any rate. But the one thing that happens is the best fucking ending ever happens at the end of that movie. The way it's shot, the way it's presented to you.
Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, you mean, yeah?
Yeah. So you leave on this high that makes you think this is the best fucking movie for sure.
I also
But you have to kind of go back. You have to go back and think about all of it.
It certainly gives you when you see for a few dollars more. It certainly gives you pause. That the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is automatically a better movie. I'll grant you that.
Yeah.
But I might push back a little bit on the idea that Clint isn't a defined character in that movie, because there are a handful of moments which actually show that they refuse to give him a backstory, and I think that is what they mean by the man with no name. It's probably a mistranslation from Italian.
Yeah,
right. like most of this most of this movie, these movies. So I think he's the man without a backstory, but I think the idea of him as the good in this world and the way he represents that.
Well, that's one thing I do find interesting about the movie, because
that's the
good in the movie murders like 12 to 13 people.
Yeah, but he also but he showed. I mean, we'll get there, but he's the only person who shows kindness at the point of life or death, and that's what it means to be good in that world. And
I agree.
So I think his character is as much about building the fictional world that you're in as it is about, in fact, more that than being a character with an arc or a backstory.
But that's what I mean. Like, I think you're right that it might be purposeful, and then therefore the movie is more intellectually interesting to me.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly?
But the movie, I think, yeah. But the movie I like watching more, I think, is, a few more dollars. Or, sorry, a few dollars more.
God. That's your sequel pitch you're talking about. A few more dollars.
Yes.
You got your title then. You've already got your title. And this time I won't steal it like Beverly Hills Cops.
That's another connection to the Pink Panther series, though, is trying to keep all these titles straight.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of thing. It's like fistful of dollars for a few dollars more. So, you expect the next in the
way
chain.
More dollars.
Way more dollars, and then you get the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That's not building.
That doesn't make any sense.
You certainly get the point when it takes half an hour for you to introduce the characters.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, okay. I mean, my ranking is as the listener, and I'm sure you have realized, is the inverse of that, but not by much.
Yeah.
I get everything you're saying, and I think emotionally and maybe viscerally for a few dollars more speaks to me.
Mm-hmm.
In a stronger way than Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but I think the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is doing so much so well, and so artistically, and also so artistically, so irreverently. And I just think, I mean, it's the perfect caper movie. And yet it's like, it's also the pinnacle of popular art, and I there's not many movies that can
say that.
Yeah, can walk that line, and I think it does throughout. And I think what is important, and I guess for our purposes as well, is it gets better when you go back. If you start with Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I think most people have. I think there's actually very few people who watch these movies chronologically. I think most people see the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, find out there were another couple of movies, and then go back and either watch it backwards or.
Well, are you on board with me though? I mean, do you consider it a prequel?
Which one? For a few dollars more, or Good, the Bad, and the Ugly?
No, Good and the Bad and the Ugly.
I mean, historically,
I'm pretty
it has
sure
to be.
Somebody's reading a newspaper for a few dollars more.
Yeah.
And it's like 1872.
It's a Temple of Doom
and that's
situation,
7 years
it?
after the Civil War ends.
It's because chronologically, yes.
Okay.
But when you kind of think about the relationship between them two movies, if you do the same with Raiders and Temple of Doom, it doesn't make any sense, and Temple of Doom might as well be the future.
Yeah, right.
I think the idea was to kind of keep it as open as possible as to whether. Well, yeah, that's it. It could go either way, because the thing that complicates it is that when Lee Van Cleef and Clint Eastwood see each other in The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, it's like they've had the relationship they had in For a Few Dollars More already. Historically, that's not possible. They're also not the same characters. They have different names, so I think they're just trying to keep their options open, basically, as to how you read the movie. I think this is a choose your own adventure when it comes to timeline and characterization.
That's it. That's funny. That's interesting. Okay.
But yeah, no, I think it's.
Do you think purposefully though? Purposefully from Sergio?
I think For a Few Dollars More is definitely set after the Civil War. The fact that it's not the same West kind of makes that a moot point.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different idea of the West.
Okay.
It's like someone with two different ideas of what the West are telling roughly the same story.
Okay.
About what went on there. And one of them just happens to know a lot more about the Civil War than the other. So you can remember specific battles and, how people died of gangrene and that sort of stuff. And he's peppering his story with those details. Whereas For a Few Dollars More is like someone who knows the Bible quite well, but isn't sort of as well versed in frontier history, is telling you the story. Because that's the other thing about For a Few Dollars More. It is a biblical parable.
Yeah.
And the movie tells you that again and again and again in no uncertain terms, that this is a biblical parable that you're watching. And it's that and the kind of Mortimer character arc, I think, are the two aspects of the movie that I'm really drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that, and of course the fact that it holds on to the fact it's a revenge story until the last few minutes, and that actually works for the movie. So I just think The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is working on a different level, and
that I think I agree with.
I've never had issues.
Find myself continually responding. I mean, part of me wants to bring up, a fistful of dollars, but I guess that's not what we're here for. But
no.
Someday we'll talk about it.
And again, that's a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
So it's kind of good that we don't have to talk about that, because that only adds to our burden of trying to figure out what the connective tissue between these movies is.
Sure.
But I've never had an issue with the length of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and because those stupid cutscenes stick out like a sore thumb for me, I had no issue with them, because I just mentally wrote them off as they happened. So
you'll have to tell me as we go along. It'd been too long. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
But the chicken scene, it was funny you mentioned the chicken scene earlier, because I was like, I don't remember a chicken.
If you're ever in the middle of a scene where it's like, I'm not sure this transition needs to be here, there you go. That's the scene they cut. Or Clint Eastwood sounds like he does in The Line of Fire.
In Unforgiven, yeah. By default, we have inverse top and bottoms. By default, I go Good, Bad, and the Ugly at the bottom. Man, it sounds weird to say that, because fuck. But
also because we're doing good and bad on Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah, right.
So could we enter a third category to our ranking just for this series? So that's it. You can choose good, bad, or ugly for either of these movies. It's probably not going to be necessary for me, because
don't think it's going to be necessary, but
it's no, couple of goods.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
And these movies have the goods.
Plainly evident. Even, whatever complaints I have are intellectual exercises that I'm having.
Well, no,
you.
I think I don't know. I think this may be where we're predisposed to overlook aspects of these movies that modern day movie viewers would find hard to get past, like the dubbing, the length, the treatment of women, the lack of any women.
Yeah.
The treatment of and or lack of women in these movies.
That was one of the things I wanted to bring up in terms of sound, because the things, if you're watching a modern day American movie and you see sort of bad ADR,
yes,
there's this thing inside you that kind of goes apeshit, where you think, how and why did they fuck that up?
Yeah.
But when you see the ADR in these movies, it's just like a warm blanket that you wrap around yourself and fall in love with.
And you're not wrong, and nostalgia is a big part of it. The other part of it for me is the recognition that having all the dialogue recorded after the film was made actually freed them up to make pure cinema.
Mm-hmm.
They were liberated from the burden of having to record sound live, and what that allowed them to do technically with the other aspects of film style.
Yeah, right.
I think it's a it's more than an even trade-off. I don't know. Well, we'll talk about it, but as far as I'm concerned, after the first scene, you don't even notice any. Don't even notice anything.
Yeah, you really don't.
Until you're kind of like, you unfocus your eyes and you realize that lips and sound are kind of moving at a different rate.
Are moving independently. But it's such a magic trick.
It is a magic trick.
How much you don't notice it.
And also, I think...
Or for how long you can go before you notice it.
Clint did a pretty good PR job in making it seem like it was like I've seen interviews where he would talk about these movies and he'd be like, you think about what they do in Italy at Cinecittà, is they do it all ADR, but you can't tell the difference. It's just seamless. It sounds like it's recorded live, and it's like, that's not true, Clint. It doesn't seem like that. But God bless you for
carrying the torch.
God bless your nonagenarian heart for carrying the torch and believe it, either believing it or wanting others to believe it, because it's you gain so much from making the movie that way, and you don't really lose anything. You lose a little bit of credibility that the audience can easily get over if they want to buy into the movie. But I mean, the political questions of the movie, I think, it is a larger discussion. It's definitely not as misogynistic as Leone will become, but it's not misogynistic.
No, yeah, right.
I never quite know, and that's the thing with Leone. I never quite know where he is vis-a-vis violence towards women. Sometimes I think he gets that it's abhorrent and he wants to show how abhorrent it is, and then other times I think he just likes watching women being raped and beaten. Like it's It's right on the line between the two of them, and that's not a comfortable line to tread, is it?
Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point for him. He's like, I don't want you to know either way.
I think,
I want you thinking
honestly,
about it.
I mean, if the rape scene in Once Upon a Time in America tells you anything, it's that this is a man who's conflicted about what he thinks about rape.
I have still never seen Once Upon a Time in America.
Well, if you think Good, the Bad, and the Ugly's too long, I don't hold that much hope for Once Upon a Time in America. There is like a 2-hour version of it that you can watch, but I believe it's almost unwatchable. The 4 hours. I think you'd love that. Just, watch it over a weekend.
I have almost turned it on 4 or 5 times in the last year.
Yeah.
Then I see the length of time, and I'm like, I don't have time for that right now.
It gives a new meaning to the. If you think the introductions to the characters of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is leisurely paced, I do. We don't get out of the Chinese opium den that begins the movie until about 40 minutes into Good, Once Upon a Time in America. We're in an opium den for a fucking long time for not really much reason.
Duly warned.
Yeah. Well, and also, I guess the other thing is the sort of spiritual sequel to at least The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is Once Upon a Time in the West, and could have very easily been an actual sequel, because it was originally supposed to be Van Cleef Eastwood and Wallach that got killed with the 3 hired guns.
Yeah, I
that got killed
remember
at the train
hearing.
station.
Yeah,
so
right.
that was the original plan, was for this to be like a kind of a soft reboot. Using, with the kind of connective tissue of having the 2 of them. I'm glad they didn't do that, in the sense. I think it's a brand new phase in his filmmaking, and I think I think that would be a bridge too far between movies. So, all
right, well, we're inverted on our rankings, but we both say these are good movies.
And good doesn't really cover it for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's really beyond good, but okay.
Yeah. Well, it's well, I'm trying to think what the inverse of ugly is. Yiglu. They are Yiglu movies.
All right, anything left for you?
No, I'm ready to.
We got to start.
I think these of all the movies we've done, I think these are movies that actually you can only discuss beat by beat, scene by scene, because they're densely packed with content.
I'll tell you the warning I got from Matt Aldrich just the other day. I guess it's more specific to the good, the bad, and the ugly. He did say, I don't know, if you guys could talk about Axel F for 2.5 hours. I don't know what the fuck you're going to do with that 3-hour movie.
But the quality almost counteracts that. Because, there's just, there's whole scenes where there's nothing to say because you wouldn't do anything differently. Yeah, and you don't even notice, you don't notice anything because it's perfect.
For 2... Like for a regular kind of movie length and then a really long movie, but both feel like very dense movies.
Oh yeah.
In the sense of how they make you think or whatever. But I did not take a lot of notes. I didn't have
Agreed.
to.
Yeah, no, I didn't take more than a normal amount of notes. And I think some of that is just down to quality, right? It's just.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing you can. It's like whenever anyone asks me.
It is what it is, and what it is, I like.
Yeah, that's if anyone if anyone asks me about my favorite movie, Ace in the Hole, the only thing I can really tell them is the acting is perfect, the writing is perfect, the direction is perfect.
What more do you want?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, like, scene to scene, I couldn't tell you like what is doing that or what is making that. I kind of don't want to comment in case it all falls apart in my hands, but yeah, but there's still a lot to talk about. But no, I don't think they're going to be overlong episodes for us. I know that means something different for us. Yeah.
If we stay off the topic of Merv Griffin, we'll be okay.
Merv Griffin's penis. There's the T-shirt. Why did I go to Merv Griffin?
It's a picture of a ball sack and a limp dick.
They should do a special edition of that the Merv Griffin Show episode of Seinfeld where you can.
Yeah, right.
You have like a condom on set or something.
You know what's funny about our ranking episodes? Every time I think to myself, how is this going to be longer than 10, 15 minutes? And then we start talking.
Yeah. We used to know how to shut up. Or or more accurately, you used to know how to shut me up.
I think back to the early episodes and I think to myself, how did I do that?
Yeah. How did we have so little to say about
Superman?
Yeah. But I think
Jaws.
that this is where you get out your overall thoughts and headlines about your feelings for the movie, and
yeah,
some of the most interesting discussions I had on these episodes. So don't skip
Agreed.
them.
Yeah, it's important stuff here, people. All right, we have ranked, we have declared. When you hear us next, we'll be talking about For a Few Dollars More. That's the title. Got it right that time.
It's actually For a Few Dollars More.
Yeah.
It's actually about eels. It's actually about eels.
That's the Italian?
Amore, yes.
All right. You're going to have to tell us what you think. We have two differing opinions here. Who are you siding with? What do you have at the top of your list? Let us know. Hit the buttons, smash the things. Go on and tell us with any form you wish you can. I forgot what they all are. The books, the grams.
Facebook, Instagram.
The X's.
X,
the skies.
Blue Sky. Keep watching
I don't like hearing the proper name.
Keep watching the skies. Threads is another. Threads and YouTube.
And YouTube, by all means.
Not on TikTok.
Listen, rate, and review.
Yes.
Let us start climbing a chart or two, why don't you? Help us out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's it. We'll be back. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here. I'm from the How Dare You Awards. When you hear us next, again, it's For a Few Dollars More, the 1965 and or 1967 film. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
Idiots. It's for you.
I
love that.
I started this episode saying I don't think these movies get enough credit for being comedies. I don't think Clint Eastwood gets enough credit for his comic timing.
Oh, so funny. I mean, I said I wouldn't talk about it, but do you remember in A Fistful of Dollars when he's with the old man and the train goes by?
That's For a Few Dollars More.
Is it?
Yeah.
Fuck.
That happens in For a Few Dollars More.
Well, I watched all three just because I...
It was not implied in our mandate.
It's not implied, but I was like, oh man, I haven't seen it in a long time.
That's it. That's definitely in For a Few Dollars More, and it's the comedic highlight of the movie. Again, visual and verbal comedy.
Yeah.
And in terms of, I think a big part of it is Clint is more relaxed here than you see him for another few decades.
Yeah.
I think the next time you see him this relaxed is in The Line of Fire.
Right, yeah.
Which is actually the last place you should get a relaxed Clint Eastwood performance, because it's just like a assassin Secret Service story, and yet he's really leaning into the old man yells at cloud of it all, because he's like
so good.
He's eating ice cream, naming pigeons.
He's telling you which pigeon will fly away first.
He's got a car. He has to get a bus or a ride everywhere. It's like, yeah.
I like when he and Rene Russo try to have sex and then they get called away. He's like, I gotta put all that stuff back on.
It's another movie that has no right to be as fun or funny or as fun as it is. And I think it's the same here.
All right, we wasted enough time. Goodbye, everybody. We'll be back
to waste more time.